Before we begin, this video is sponsored by Sleeve Chief. You can find good quality accessories to make your deck and gear look good. Get card protector sleeves with artworks of all your favorite archetypes and cards for the main and extra deck. There's extraordinary border sleeves, and they've got you covered with deck boxes, playmats, and dice as well. Head on over to Sleeve Chief's website through my affiliate link in the description box below and use my code SHADOW at checkout to get 5% off your entire order. Let's begin. Hey guys, I'm Naya and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about Labrynth. Just like I did the Trap Chicks video, I figured I would do a how to beat Labrynth video as well and sort of walk you through a couple important things that you should remember when you're going up against that deck, and also give you a couple ideas as to which cards you can put in your side deck or main deck to counter the strategy. So yeah, basically I wanted to go over the cards first. I pulled up some of the cards because I wanted to discuss a couple things. Like, for example, when it comes to Ariana, she says that you can only use one of her effects per turn and only once that turn, so make sure you don't get cheated that way. It's not one of those you can only use each of the following effects. It's like BA stuff, basically, so make sure that they only use one of the effects. And also, since we're on the topic of Ariana, the deck likes to play Rasfir mode, so when they use it, make sure, because it's eating up their normal summon, that they don't use Ariana as well, like normal summon it and start playing. It's very easy to get either intentionally or unintentionally cheated that way. If they break your board and start playing with Ariana, there's something weird about it, so make sure that that doesn't happen. The next card I wanted to talk about, and we're going to talk about this card for some time because there's a lot of things to mention. So Lady Labrynth it's insanely busted, but it's got a couple things about it where you just want to make sure that everything is happening properly. For example, basically the first part we're going to discuss a little later, but it says that if a Labrynth card or effect or a normal trap card was activated this turn, and it's a quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. So the first thing, it needs to be in defense. They cannot summon it in attack. And also because it's a quick effect, it can chain directly to that activation. It's not one of those effects like Kashtira stuff right now, for example, is activating in a new chain, and we're all quite aware of that at this point in time. But with Lady Labrynth, it's a quick effect. It's going to chain directly, and it really ties into negations. So if you would negate an activation of either a normal chap card or their Labrynth card or effect, whatever you're trying to negate, if you're the opponent of the Labrynth player, you negate the activation. Lady, of course, will not be able to special summon herself in that turn. However, if everything is still part of the same chain, and for example, they activate something, and then you chain a card effect that would be able to negate the activation of their card, but it's not a counter trap, for example, something that can be responded to, they can still chain Lady because the activation wasn't negated yet, because you're still in the same chain. However, if they don't, and then later they're trying to use Lady, the activation was negated, so it's not a legal activation to special summon herself. And like I said, her effect is a quick effect. The second part of her effect, or like the last part, it's a when effect. Says when a normal chap card is activated, quick effect, you can set one normal chap with a different name. Number one thing, it needs to be a different named card. And number two, because again, it's a quick effect and also a when effect, it needs to chain directly to the activation. So if you have anything, literally anything to disrupt that, it's very similar to how Thunder Dragon Titan used to work. If you had something to disrupt it, they wouldn't get the pop. If you still remember that, you know, that's like a reference you can have. But basically, because when they activate something, they need to pass priority to you. So if you have anything to activate, even if it's like flipping a continuous trap face up without using the effect, whatever it may be, for you to prevent them from chaining directly with the lady, they won't be able to use her effect. So it's important to keep in mind, it's not always going to be possible. So for the most part, they're probably going to get their effects off. They're going to be able to chain directly, but make sure to remind them that they cannot rush with their effects. Like, they need to pass priority to you and ask you if you have anything. And if you do, you know, that's only good for you, basically. And then I also wanted to mention the first part of the effect, where it says that while you control a set card, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. It cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So I had the situation where basically Excite on Night was used against Labrynth, and they had a bunch of set stuff, and they had Lady as well. And basically what happens in that situation, Lady is still protected, even if everything would get destroyed at the same time. The back row existing is still protecting Lady, so everything in the spell and trap card zone, everything else would get wiped, but Lady would stay because it was still protected from being destroyed by card effects. The next card I wanted to discuss is Big Welcome Labrynth. Again, it's only one effect and only one stat turn, and I also wanted to mention that basically it says that you can banish this card from your grave, then target one fiend monster you control, or if you control a level 8 or higher fiend monster, you can target one card your opponent controls and bounce that. So you need to make sure that they actually control a level 8 or higher fiend, and not just try to bounce your cards without having the proper monsters on the field. And also the first part of the effect, where they special summon a Labrynth monster, they need to then return one monster they control to the hand. So again, something to just make sure you remind them if, in case they forget or don't do it or whatever. Like, they're probably going to, but still, I just want to remind you of all of the effects. And with Welcome Labrynth, it's important to keep in mind that it locks you, or locks them, the Labrynth player, that they cannot special summon monsters from the deck or extra deck except fiend monsters until the end of the next turn after the card has resolved. And the second effect, it can only be used except the turn the card was sent to the graveyard. So there's a couple of, like, you know, niche things where you can so easily get cheated, and I just want to prevent that. So with that, we're gonna move on to the last card I wanted to discuss. Actually, I have one more. So this and then another thing. The lovely Labrynth, I just wanted to mention that it says that you can target a normal trap in your graveyard, you set it to your field, but it cannot be activated unless you control a fiend monster. And like overall, just read this card through. For example, you cannot activate monster effects in response to their normal trap card activations. Like just make sure you're aware of all of that. And as for the last card, I wanted to mention Skill Drain because the deck is playing it. When you have Skill Drain face up already on the field, before you as the opponent summon something that would be unaffected, and a great example right now is Trap Chick Sarah. So Sarah would be unaffected if it's Link summoned by the effects of trap cards. However, if Skill Drain is already face up on the field and an unaffected monster gets summoned, it's not unaffected because essentially it's like negated immediately as it hits the field and never has the chance to establish its immunity. I know I'm saying this in like a weird way, but hopefully you know what I mean. Like a very good example was also a Masterpiece when it was summoned using a trap card. If Skill Drain was already on the field, it's not unaffected by trap cards, and that's a very, very similar example, almost the same one actually. But right now Sarah would be the better example. So make sure if they have Skill Drain already face up that your stuff won't be unaffected, sadly. So that's another thing. And with that, we're gonna move on to some cards that you can use to counter the strategy. So the first one that comes to mind is Ash. Like pretty much the same as it was with Eldritch when you were just ashing Sanguine every single time. Just make sure you ash their Welcome Labrynth, their Big Welcome Labrynth. All of the trap cards can be ashed, and also the Big Welcome can also be Ghost Belt because it's summoning from the graveyard as well. You are taking away like everything that they are working for. Basically, you are slowing them down completely, almost stopping them, because they're not getting their Labrynth stuff in rotation, so they won't be able to get all of the disruption effects off of the trap cards. They won't be able to have access to their Lady and Lovely and all of that. Like, it's important to cut them off as soon as possible, because overall a trap deck is inherently slower, so it's going to take some time for them to build up advantage again. So Ash, just it's busted. It's very, very, very good, and Bell as well when it comes to the Big Welcome Labrynth. Then overall spell trap removal. For example, we're gonna go one by one. Cosmic Cyclone, I think is quite useful because for a lot of effects, you actually know where the cards are being set. For example, like Ladies sets a different named card, Lovely sets it as well. So if you want to use Cyclone against other matchups, it's not bad against Labrynth, particularly because you know what you're actually dealing with, so you're not just blindly sniping stuff. So I think that's very useful. And overall, using cards that like are mass removal, like Lightning Storm and Duster, they're not bad, but the deck plays King of the Sky Prison, so if they have a way to protect their back row, they are most certainly going to use it, and the Cosmic Cyclone goes around the destruction protection. So of course, if they have King of the Sky Prison, cards like Lightning Storm, Harpies, even Twisters aren't as great. Then you can also use Evenly. You need to keep in mind that they play Solemn Judgment. It's pretty much like whichever of you draws it. I don't think Evenly is bad, but you need to keep in mind that Judgment is a thing. So you know, hopefully they don't judgment you evenly, but evenly is very, very useful because it's going to deal with their entire board pretty much, which is great against the trap deck because they need to commit a lot of resources to stay in the game. So almost all the time they are going to be setting a bunch of cards. Then I also wanted to mention Lava Golem and particularly Kaijus. Kaijus are great because the lady, like I said before, is very protected. She cannot be targeted, cannot be destroyed by card effects while you have set cards, and they have set cards most of the time. So Kaiju is a very, very good way of dealing with it, and a lot of people started to run Kaijus because of Rise card. So Kaijus are nice. Lava Golem is also not bad because they put up 2 monsters on the field. So yeah, you know, those are options for you as well if you want. Then probably one of the best ones is Denko Seka. The Ariana cannot beat over it, which is very, very important. The only way for them to beat over it would be Lady Labrynth if it gets summoned after a Labrynth card effect was activated. So that's a way to beat over it, but it's going to take some time for them to establish it. And again, the only thing that they can have to counter it would be Solemn Judgment. So it's like 3 copies of it against 3 copies of Judgment, and nothing else they have is going to be able to deal with it. So you just slap it on the field, and a lot of decks can actually run Denko right now because not a lot of them are relying on their normal summon that much. Alright, then I wanted to mention 2 that aren't as great probably, but I still wanted to throw them out there in case you're trying to play Royal Decree and in case you're trying to play Jinzo together with Expulsion and Branded, which is a thing. It sounds a bit gimmicky, but like, I don't know, I think it's funny. I wanted to mention it. And as for Royal Decree, like, it's not bad, right? The effect is not bad, but I just don't really like when trap cards are used against a trap deck because you would have to side it in going first. And going first, you already don't have a bad matchup against a trap deck because obviously a trap deck is going to struggle going second. So if you establish your board going first, you probably should be good anyway. Like, in case you're worried of them having going second cards and breaking your board, and then you're siding in Royal Decree and hoping that you have it as well on top of your other disruptions, then I understand. But like, overall, I think to counter a trap deck, it's better to have going second cards and just stuff that breaks the board instead of cards that would prevent them from playing when you're going first anyway. And just overall, the best advice I can give you is study the builds so you know which trap cards they are going to run. So you pretty much know when they set a bunch of back row, you can suspect what they have because of how they react to your stuff. You know, you can sort of tell if they have Compulse, if they have like whatever it may be. Just study the builds. Literally, you can write down a list if you want of trap cards you should be thinking about and maybe playing around if you're able to do it. Ash the Big Welcome, Ash the Welcome. Make sure you have a way to deal with Lady because it's horrible to deal with. So just keep all of that in mind. Have back row removal that's going to either mask clear, like evenly, for example. And if they don't have King of the Sky Prison, Lightning Storm, stuff like that, Cosmic is extremely useful right now, I think. So that's a good option for you. And Denko, if you're able to run it, I think it's useful as well. So that would pretty much be it. Hopefully this video taught you something. Hopefully you gained some information. Let me know in the comments if you did, and like always, like, just make sure to like the video, make sure to check out all the social media, sub, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.